Merci beaucoup tout le monde d'être venu. Tout d'abord, j'aimerais partager les pensées et les prières du Parti conservateur et de notre caucus pour tous ceux et celles qui sont touchés par le coronavirus, y compris la famille du Premier ministre. Nous souhaitons à tous les gens qui sont touchés par la crise une bonne récupération et nous serons là pour supporter tout le monde. Before I begin, I want to offer the Conservative Party's thoughts and prayers to anyone who is suffering with symptoms of the coronavirus and their families, including, of course, the Prime Minister's family. We wish them well in their recovery, and, of course, in all personal manner, we will support them any way we can. Crises like these inevitably come along every decade or so. We remember back in 2008, it was a financial crisis. That's why conservatives have long said that during the rosy and prosperous economic times that the world passed through over the previous 4 years, the government should have been paying off debt and reinforcing our financial foundations to prepare for the inevitable winter storm that comes along. And now that storm is here. Of course, Canada's economy is weak and vulnerable going into this crisis with a large and growing deficit and growth that of 0.3%, which effectively had ground to a halt before the crisis even began. Before the crisis, half of Canadians were $200 away from insolvency. Before the crisis, the deficit was $27 billion. Before the crisis, there had been $150 billion of natural resource projects canceled by investors due to government policies. Again, that leaves us weak and vulnerable in facing this problem that has now landed before us. Cela étant dit, le Parti conservateur veut faire partie de la solution. C'est la raison pour laquelle aujourd'hui, notre caucus a accepté de permettre le gouvernement de continuer de fonctionner sans le Parlement. Évidemment, normalement, on demande qu'un gouvernement présente ses actions économiques et surtout ses dépenses devant un Parlement pour un approvisionnement. Mais on a décidé d'accepter que le gouvernement fasse ces genres d'activités sans le fonctionnement du Parlement pour le simple fait qu'il fallait, pour l'instant, suspendre les réunions parlementaires pour les raisons de santé. As you all know, today Conservatives took the extraordinary measure in cooperation to give the government the authority to act without Parliament for a period of over a month, while it is unsafe for MPs and their staff to congregate in the House of Commons. We do this because our interest is in protecting Canadians and the economy more than in any other matter. Over the next several days, Conservatives will make concrete proposals to rescue our weak and vulnerable economy, to protect consumers, families, small businesses, and others who might inordinately suffer through no fault of their own because of this crisis. Au cours des prochains jours, le Parti conservateur présentera des propositions de sauvetage pour notre économie qui aidera les consommateurs, des familles, des travailleurs et des petites et moyennes entreprises à réussir pendant cette période de crise. Our proposals will ensure that there are no long-term and permanent costs to the government, that will ensure that there's more money in the pockets of the people who need it most, and will allow us to confront the crisis that the global economy will now face. I now welcome your questions.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Poilievre. On va commencer with the Globe and Mail.
Mr. Poilievre, so the government today said there will be money coming out next week to stabilize the economy, but also to help people. One of the issues is who do you help? Who should the government help? Sorry. How should they help? What's your proposal to help people who might not might fall through the cracks right now, who might be vulnerable, who might have problems paying their groceries, rent, etc.?
I can't make an announcement today. Conservatives leadership has been in meetings with economists, experts, and others to help formulate a rescue plan for Canada's weak and vulnerable economy. We will ensure that that our proposals do not simply lead to more expensive bureaucracies and permanent new costs, but rather will deliver relief to consumers, workers, entrepreneurs, and others unfairly impacted by the crisis.
In terms of the government's ability to spend more right now, obviously you're not happy with the government's current fiscal situation. Governor Poloz, I think, if I remember correctly, but I'm pretty sure he said the government does have fiscal firepower, which is what the Liberals like to say these days. Do you disagree with that assessment that they lack? Does the government lack fiscal firepower right now?
Well, the deficit is large and growing. It is already $6 billion bigger than Liberals promised during their most recent budget. They like to talk about the debt to GDP ratio. What they forget is that in crisis, the ratio automatically starts to go up as the economy goes down. The denominator in the debt to GDP ratio may start to shrink, and that will mean that the debt as a share of our economy will rise. That's before any of their election promises or their coronavirus response is even calculated into the equation. So that's precisely why the government should have been paying off debt and protecting our balance sheet during the good times to prepare for these bad times that have now arrived. Conservatives will propose measures that will not add long-term or permanent costs to the Government of Canada. We also don't think that now is the time to build up big new bureaucracies. Rather, we need a streamlined and simple approach that leaves more in the pockets of workers, consumers, families, and small businesses. They're the ones who need it most, and they're the ones that will get us through these hard economic times.
Merci. On va à Radio-Canada.
Monsieur Poilievre, ma première question va un peu dans le sens de celle de mon collègue ici. Est-ce que le gouvernement, vous croyez, peut faire quelque chose de mieux en ce moment?
Oui. C'est évident que le gouvernement ne sait pas quoi faire. Hier, le ministre a dit vouloir présenter un budget le 30 mars. Aujourd'hui, moins de 24 heures plus tard, il a changé de position totalement. Alors, de l'un jour à l'autre, c'est clair que le gouvernement n'a pas de plan, n'a pas d'idée comment combattre cette crise. Alors, je pense qu'une meilleure gestion de cette crise serait mieux pour assurer les Canadiens et Canadiennes et pour répondre à la crise économique qui est en train de se passer.
Alors, si le gouvernement n'a pas de plan, pourquoi vous n'avez pas de plan encore et pourquoi votre plan, votre proposition de sauvetage n'a pas été présentée cette semaine alors?
On a déjà fait des suggestions régulièrement à ce que le gouvernement puisse faire. Par exemple, on a déjà dit que le gouvernement devrait éliminer la paperesse pour que nos entreprises puissent commencer à investir. On a déjà dit que les taxes et les impôts sont déjà trop hauts. On a déjà dit que les grandes annonces d'infrastructures devraient se concrétiser en projets au lieu de simplement publicité. Donc, ces suggestions sont déjà présentes et nous allons avoir davantage à dire dans les prochains jours.
Again, I just want to ask, if you're criticizing the government for not having a plan in this crisis, what is the Conservative plan? And can you just note some suggestions that were made over the last few days or weeks?
Yes, Conservatives have been saying ever since this problem arose that the government needed to clear away regulatory red tape that was holding back business and investment, streamline infrastructure so that they can actually get built rather than just announced, and relieve taxpayers of the excessive burden that's holding them down even before the crisis began. We also were just in this hall a week ago announcing our recommendations for the budget, which included, I think, around 24 different measures the government could take if it was serious about getting our economy growing and unleashing the power of free enterprise. We will have more specifics in the days to come.
Are you satisfied with some of the steps that they've taken with regard to unemployment insurance or employment insurance? And should we be doing more to support workers at that level?
The elimination of the week-long waiting period is a positive step to encourage people who are sick to stay home. Work sharing is a very effective way to keep people employed when their employer does not have the resources to pay the full payroll. We used that measure during the great global recession. It saved a lot of jobs. We're pleased to see those measures. But where I think the government has been weak is that it has not done anything to address the burden on taxpayers, workers, entrepreneurs, who are the lifeblood of this economy and who will face hardship as a result of the crisis.
Okay, any other questions? D'autres questions? That concludes our press conference.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the National Press Theatre for yet another press conference. We have Peter Julian and Heather McPherson, respectively House Leader and Deputy House Leader, among other things. So you can make some statements and we'll take questions afterwards.
Merci beaucoup. Et bien sûr, nos pensées sont avec Mme Gregoire et les 178 victimes de coronavirus maintenant au Canada. So to start off, from the NDP caucus and from our leader, Jagmeet Singh, we will say that we are thinking of Mme Gregoire and the 178 victims of the coronavirus in Canada today. Alors, on est dessous avec la troisième annonce du ministre des Finances à propos des victimes de coronavirus. Il semble que les personnes ordinaires, les gens ordinaires sont oubliés un peu par ce gouvernement. Et on va continuer à tenter de donner une bonne direction au gouvernement pour que ces gens-là ne soient pas oubliés. D'abord, quand on parle des travailleurs et des travailleuses, le fait que 40% des gens qui ont l'assurance emploi sont les seuls, pour l'instant, qui sont protégés par un programme pour les congés de maladie, quand ces gens-là n'ont pas un congé de maladie déjà payé. Ça manque. Et on espère bien que qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire, c'est de mettre en place, comme le Premier ministre a si bien dit ce matin, un programme qui va faire en sorte que tout le monde soit soutenu, tout le monde soit supporté. Le Premier ministre l'a dit, mais aujourd'hui, le ministre des Finances ne semble pas avoir suivi qu'est-ce que le Premier ministre a clairement dit ce matin. Il y a d'autres pays, le Japon, l'Australie, sont deux exemples où tous les travailleurs et les travailleuses sont protégés, puis il y a des paiements qui vont à ces familles-là. Deuxièmement, quand il s'agit des financements dans le système de santé, on a jusqu'à maintenant à peu près 500 millions de dollars qui sont fournis, mais la réalité, c'est que les coupeurs et le manque dans le système de santé depuis 3 ans semble autour de 5 milliards. Alors, il y a une différence, un écart qui devrait être adressé. Et troisièmement, bien sûr, aussi, c'est les communautés autochtones à travers le pays, ceux qui ont été cruellement oubliés dans les dernières pandémies, et on veut que ces ressources soient fournies. Il n'y a pas eu, jusqu'à maintenant, un plan à cet égard des communautés autochtones. Il y a d'autres mesures qui devraient être prises. D'abord, quand on parle de la question de l'Agence du revenu du Canada et les rapports d'impôts, j'ai eu aujourd'hui une agence dans mon comté qui a demandé si on peut prolonger la date limite pour soumettre les rapports d'impôts. La réalité, c'est que quand on parle des personnes âgées, par exemple, c'est nécessaire pour eux autres de déposer un rapport d'impôt pour continuer d'avoir le supplément de revenus garanti. Le fait que, pour l'instant, le gouvernement n'a pas annoncé un prolongement dans les dates limites pour les impôts pourrait avoir un impact cruel sur ces gens-là. Aussi, pour les prêts d'étudiants canadiens. Et quand on regarde la question des expulsions, quand on regarde aussi des saisies et des coupeurs dans les gaz et l'électricité, tous ces éléments-là devraient faire partie d'un plan du gouvernement pour que les gens ordinaires soient protégés. So we are disappointed in the government's announcements to date. We have said, and Jagmeet Singh has said numerous times, that we need to protect all workers. That's the announcement that the Prime Minister made this morning, saying that all Canadian workers, all Canadians, should be protected if they take a sick leave, even when their job situation doesn't allow them to have paid sick leave. But to date, the government has just announced programs that basically help the 40% of Canadians that access employment insurance. That has to change. Other countries, like Japan and Australia, have provided direct payment to families and direct payment to workers, and Canada needs to do the same thing. Secondly, in terms of the shortfall in healthcare funding, the amounts announced to date are less than 10% of the shortfall that we have seen over the last 3 years in the healthcare system. The government has to address the lack of resources that have gone into the healthcare system over the last few years. And we have not seen any plan yet for Indigenous communities. Indigenous communities were completely forgotten. when we talk about past pandemics, and Indigenous communities need to be at the forefront of government planning for this pandemic. And to date, we have seen no plan at all from the government. These issues need to be addressed. And I'll pass the microphone over to my colleague, Heather McPherson, to continue.
Well, and we're very, as Peter's mentioned, we're very concerned about Canadians, of course, very concerned about Sophie. And really, people are very afraid and people are scared, and they're not just scared of their health outcomes. They're scared of the economic outcomes that they're going to be feeling. And there are things we know we could be doing right now that would help working class Canadians, that could help families, that could help people that own small businesses in my community and communities across the country. These are things that need to happen right now. You know, we've been asking for the government to push back the deadline for CRA filing, to make sure that the repayment doesn't have to happen right now, so that we are protecting people in the short term, so that people aren't having to stand in lines in constituency offices and, you know, be in crowds and be at risk. We know that we can protect students right now. I have post-secondary institutions in my riding, and we should be making sure that there is a halt to those student loan payments. They should not have to be doing that right now. The NDP have been calling for that for interest for a long time, and of course, now that we're in this situation, we really need to accelerate that. And then another thing we can do is make sure that Canadians can stay in their homes. So at this moment, we should be halting. The foreclosures. We should be halting evictions. We should be making sure that we're not turning off power on people. These are things we can do right now to make sure people are protected.
Okay, thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Des questions, Globe and Mail?
Daniel LeBlanc, Globe and Mail. Can you give me a sense of what next week? So obviously you're not happy with what they've announced to date, but Minister was clear there's more to come. We don't know what. In terms of the first step, what do you think should be the first step of next week's announcement in terms of maybe people who don't have EI, for example? Or what's the first step that Mr. Morneau should announce next week?
The first step is what Jagmeet Singh has called for repeatedly, and the NDP as well, and that is extending to ensure that any worker, regardless of whether they have paid sick leave or not in their employment contract, don't have to make the choice between putting food on the table and going into quarantine. And the only way to do that is to follow the example of other industrialized countries like Japan and Australia that have put into place measures that protect all workers. And the Prime Minister seemed to acknowledge that this morning, and this is what I find perplexing. The Prime Minister said very clearly this morning, everybody will be protected. No one will have to make that difficult choice between feeding a family or protecting the public. But the Finance Minister hasn't in any way followed up with that yet. That has got to be the first measure among the key measures that we are mentioning that needs to be put into place.
In terms of people who are affected, the issue might not be that they need to go into quarantine, but that, their job has been canceled or that, wherever they were working is affected by this. How can the government help these people who might be actually not sick or anything like that, but because of the effect of these shutdowns, this lockdown, are no longer have a job?
Yeah.
Well, I think we really need to see some wage supplements. We need to be protecting these workers. I mean, we saw in Ontario that there are going to be teachers that are going to be out of work. This is a reality. We see in my province of Alberta that there is going to be a significant drop in people being able to work in the service industry. I just spoke to a constituent this afternoon who has a business that is going to be shutting down because he sells his products at farmers markets, and those aren't going to be happening. And there is nothing in the Liberal plan to look after my constituents.
Unless you had something.
Well, just to add to Ms. McPherson, the reality is other countries are taking these kinds of action, providing supports to lower-income families. It's perplexing to us that Canada isn't following the lead isn't walking the talk of what the Prime Minister said to the nation earlier today.
Monsieur Julian, pour vous, s'il y avait dans votre liste, là, justement, et un peu ce que demandait mon collègue, quelle serait la priorité numéro 1 dans votre liste à laquelle devrait s'attarder le gouvernement?
Mais on a parlé de 3 priorités parce que c'est toutes les mesures qui devraient être prises au même temps. C'est difficile de dire, mais il y a juste un aspect qu'on devrait toucher, quand on sait que l'impact économique et l'impact financier va être considérable. Alors, protéger les travailleurs, ça, c'est primordial. Le gouvernement semble reconnaître ça en partie en disant, mais là, on va élargir l'accès à l'assurance emploi, mais il y a quand même 60% des gens qui ne sont pas touchés par ces mesures-là à date. Il faut changer ça. Deuxièmement, au niveau des ressources qui sont données dans le système de santé, c'est extrêmement important qu'on commence à mettre les ressources telles qu'exigées. Et étant donné qu'on a déjà manqué à gagner 5 milliards de dollars, les mesures prises à date ne semblent pas compenser le manque à gagner qui était déjà dans le système de santé. Et troisièmement, les communautés autochtones. Là, on a vu cruellement comment les communautés autochtones ont été traitées dans les autres pandémies. Il ne faut pas que ça arrive une troisième fois. Et c'est pour ça que des gens, Jagmeet Singh, mais aussi Charlie Angus, Nikki Ashton, les Gazon, ont tous parlé de l'importance de mettre ces ressources en place pour les communautés autochtones qui souvent n'ont pas accès à un système de santé ou des ressources de santé. Alors, ça, c'est 3 mesures importantes, mais les autres qu'on vient de discuter sont aussi importantes et on tente de dire au gouvernement, il faut prendre plusieurs mesures. Aider la communauté d'affaires, ça va, mais mon Dieu, il y a toute une autre gamme des mesures qui devraient être prises que d'autres pays sont en train de prendre. Pourquoi le gouvernement n'agit pas?
Mais est-ce qu'il n'est pas un peu normal, à votre avis, c'est bien beau, d'autres pays ont mis en place ce genre de mesures-là, mais elles ne sont pas nécessairement toutes ces mesures annoncées sur le champ en même temps. Et compte tenu de la situation volatile, il n'est pas un peu normal, justement, qu'un gouvernement, par exemple, n'annonce pas tout en même temps?
Moi, je pense que les gens veulent une assurance, des assurances que le gouvernement comprend. Aujourd'hui, on a eu une annonce de 10 milliards pour élargir le champ de crédit. Il me semble que d'avoir d'autres mesures qui démontrent que le gouvernement comprend l'impact dans la vie des gens ordinaires serait nécessaire et importante. Et je ne comprends pas, ça fait 3 annonces. On n'a pas vraiment touché ces mesures-là. Il me semble que le gouvernement manque à l'appel quand il s'agit des familles ordinaires.
Merci beaucoup. Any other questions? D'autres questions? All right. Merci beaucoup pour votre temps.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so
Bonne
much.
fin de semaine. Merci.